We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this new stream of compute data and create autonomous agents. And this is going to be a laid back stream. And as you see, Indra was stuck like Eats Price. We are so we try to keep this stream a bit candid and speak about data, speak about compute, and honestly around agents and the whole wave. So, this whole stream is focused mostly on the new technological side, which is coming up, I would say, and which has a lot of use cases and which has romanced with, hey, Indra, glad to have you back, and which has romanced with the ideas of agentic side, with the ideas of federated learning, with the ideas of a lot of things which are decentralized. So today we have Mark, who is the co-founder of Aether, and we have Indra, who is the ecosystem lead for Pundi AI, and we have Prashant, the co-founder of Spheron, and we have me, the ecosystem lead of Spheron, speaking about the whole ideas of decentralized compute and autonomous agents. So every day, I think we have everyone here who does specifically compute and data. So at what stage are we really at? Like, let's be honest, like at what stage we are at in terms of autonomous agents? Like, is it really a thing? Do you think it is picking up? There are things which are already there, or people are trying to ride the wave, and it's an open space. So I would not point people to answer on things and want to keep this candid. So, like, at what stage we are, you personally think that, okay, because everybody has went through the rooster of different agents coming up and coming up with the greater narrative of autonomous. So have you seen any autonomous frameworks agents yet, or do you think we are really close, or do you think we are far away? What's your take on this?
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in. I'll jump in first. And I'm not sure whether you're asking in the frame of kind of Web 3 or Web 2, but I'll kind of take it in its most general form, right? And I think we, as everyone kind of in the room knows, and probably most people listening, we had this kind of AI agent boom a couple of months ago in the crypto space, right? It was a bit of a flash in the pan. I think everyone was very excited that agents had kind of made their way to crypto, right? I think that a lot of projects had been pushing versions of agents for quite a while and maybe not getting much market attention. And all of a sudden they became this hot narrative, right? But they lost the narrative pretty quick, right? And the vast majority of the agents that launched at that time are now either non-existent or have lost the majority of their kind of their market share and their valuations. And I think the reason why, and I think most people kind of understand this now, is because they really weren't agents, right? They were effectively chatbots with very kind of limited functionality. And as we all know, agents are the execution layer for LLMs, right? They're not just an answer engine; they're a doing engine. And to be honest, the Web3 sector is probably not the place that's going to be building and delivering the pointiest end of the kind of agentic space, right? What I see us being more capable of doing is kind of building the tools that allow agents to plug into all of the interesting stuff that we've built, right? Easiest example is like MCPs, right? That agents can come and use, and it allows them to understand and access protocols and blockchains and smart contracts and things like that. But I think we're very reliant on what's being built in the Web 2 space. And I think only recently, literally in the last kind of couple of months, have we started to see some pretty cool agentic products, right? Manus being kind of one of the big ones that went kind of quite viral. But I've seen a few more go relatively viral over the last kind of few weeks in particular. So I think we're starting to get to that kind of inflection point where really interesting agentic products are going to start competing for mindshare, and we're going to start seeing them adopted more regularly by the average person. Right now, Manus is like $200 a month, right? The average person is not going and looking for a managed subscription. And I think, to be honest, we're probably going to see subscriptions like that for the next probably 3 to 6 months. So I don't think it's something that everyone's going to use, but it's going to get people's imagination flowing, right? And we're going to see an indication of where the market's going. And I think crypto is going to do what we do best: come in, hype the shit out of deliver some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I think you know
Yeah,
what the
we good at that.
while you were talking, I was just writing down a question, and I thought I'll throw it out on your way also. But before I throw that question out, I would also love to kind of like add my points here a little bit around like where are we in terms of Web3 and Web2, and kind of 100% agree with Mark here is like a lot of innovations are not at all there in Web3. And but again, I'm just again picking up the generalized system. I don't know, like Mark, you have seen yesterday launch of Google I/O. Like they have done a fantastic job in creating those agent-to-agent communication. Then suddenly Twitter was flooded with whose company is shutting down, who has raised the capital for building such kind of agents, right?
How many companies did they kill?
Yeah, how many companies did they kill? So I think autonomy is gonna be there. Hype is gonna be there. And when we say about autonomy, right? So it totally depends what we are looking at in terms of autonomous agents. First thing first is that are these autonomous agents gonna behave on behalf of us and do tons of different actions? The answer is most likely no. When I say financial terms, not on the normal terms. The reason because I'm very like I'm not yet convinced after seeing LLMs and using them in my entire day in and day out life. I have witnessed that not even I, like most of you, if you use aggressively LLMs, you will realize that is that they are not good when it comes to immediate actions and performing a lot of things upfront. They have been fine tuned, trained over a data which was older, which is not new. If you want to do, let's say, very classic example, like if I want to give an agent to go and do certain research and then park my money in some DeFi yielding assets, autonomy, I would bet you not to do it. The reason being because it can screw you up. Okay, it can go haywire, it can hallucinate, it can do tons of different things, which can basically lead to the problems where it may park your fund in the place where it is not required to park. Right, that's one thing. Second thing is that LLMs are still at a very early stage of. So what we have seen in the LLM so far is just the output of it. Okay, when I say that, it basically means that we don't know what is the security vulnerabilities which are inside these LLMs. There are a lot of security researchers, there are a lot of security audits, there are a lot of things which is still yet to come out. So and I'll be very honest, like just I think in one of the stream I gave you guys one prompt to type in your chat GPT, and you will come to know what chat GPT knows about you. So there are a lot of these security loopholes of these systems which you can or any people can exploit, which is insane, like bad when it comes to the financial decisions. So I would not go and make my like fully autonomous agents to do such kind of stuff. But yes, I am on the favor that where autonomous agents can help me to drill down the research part. They can help me to, hey, you know what, I have a meeting tomorrow, schedule a meeting tomorrow, right? So all of those things is fine, but giving my financial incentive to these autonomous agents, I'm kind of like not yet there. And again, the next theory around that is like agents always works on predictability, right? So wherever there is a prediction, they don't know when what is happening in the real world scenarios, right? A lot of times they don't even have understanding, and market moves on the basis of real world scenarios. Tomorrow something happens in the real world, suddenly the entire market will change, and your data which you have accrued for the next past 10 years on which those agents were trained on suddenly become useless, right? So I think there is a lot of moving piece and bits and pieces which these autonomous agents not yet there, but I'm quite bullish on the fact that they are going to be there, like down the line, not for at least 2 to 3 years. I'm looking for 5 years where I see that when these real time systems and agents, weather data, everything is connected to these agents, and they have real time information of everything, and then they can basically like come to as close as human being to execute things autonomously. I think that would be my take.
3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your
It's quite far.
what's your AGI prediction then?
It's the same.
You're
Like
far away.
what I look at on the AGI side is the same thing. It's like the reason. So how AGI is going to come into picture? So AGI, the philosophy today is around the LLMs and all of these things is like, if you look at all the LLMs, right? If I tell him today is like, what is the weather is going to be tomorrow? Can that LLM tell you that? The answer is no, right? Now, if we have to solve that problem first, that LLM has to understand the billion parameters which is running inside the environment. And to do that, it has to have those billion parameters getting injected at the runtime on all of these LLMs, right? And then only we can at least get closer to AGI. Okay, so
All right.
that's where I am kind of like thinking, and it's not gonna be as easy. So far, it's software level.
Mate, the O3 model, for example, incredibly switched on. You can upload a photo of anywhere without any metadata, and you can tell it. You can say, "Where am I?" And it will cut the picture up, zoom in, analyze like little roofs and different architecture styles, and with incredible accuracy, it can work out like where you are anywhere in the world. Right? It's pretty crazy. I think I'm going to ask the O3 model what it thinks the weather is going to be tomorrow. And when you ask that question, am I able to tell it where I am, or am I able to say, what is the weather like? What is the weather going to be tomorrow in Singapore? Can I say that, or do I have to not say where I am?
No, you have to ask it. What is weather going to be tomorrow in Singapore?
Okay. Should I kind of prompt it well? Should I say, you are a meteorological expert?
Yeah, whatever. You just ask a normal question.
Enhance the prompt.
I'm going to ask it, what is the weather going to be in Singapore tomorrow? We can have a look. Because the rate of change is insane.
Yeah, that's true. But the thing is, like, all of these things are not real time. So, for example, if you, as a human, when we go outside, right, we look at the weather, we look at multiple things. We don't know where the air is going to be flowing tomorrow. There are a lot of these data points which are not yet connected in the real time to all the countries, because all the countries have their own real time data feeds, right? And they are not yet connected to agents. So there are a lot of these boundaries which are still set, and these boundaries requires a lot of, for example, if you look at Dubai, right? If you look at Dubai and all of those regions which are very, very isolated in terms of data sharing, it's become very tricky to understand what is going on there, right? And even in I don't know, like, what is in Singapore. And the same is applicable in India, where a lot of these weather data stations not yet alive, like not yet working very properly. Even in India, a lot of time you will hear that there is going to be rain tomorrow, and then rain never happens for the next 10 days, right? So such kind of thing, which is very unpredictable. How can we, like, imagine that these agents or these AGIs are going to be, like, able to predict the future and act upon it? It's going to be very tricky, and they have to be, like, behaving in the real time. I know there are a couple of companies who are already working on this kind of, like, upload the photo, like even oven model, because these are general questions, but they are not real time. Like, if I put that AGI, or if I put that agent, or if I put that bot in the real world scenario, how it is going to behave, perform, we don't know. It still doesn't understand a lot of humidity. What is the humidity in the weather? Tons of these things feature has to be, like, coming to the picture. So that's what my take is on AGI, and also the same on fully autonomy side.
I think honestly, based on that definition, we could be, man. I think there's, we're hearing rumors that the next DeepSeek model will be coming out in the next couple of weeks. We're hearing the next, like, ChatGPT model might be coming out in the next couple of weeks. And if the rate of change or if the amount of change is as big as the jump from what was kind of pre O3 to current O3, if that jump is, like, replicated again, I think it's incredibly difficult to estimate how intelligent and capable these models will be, right?
So what do you think? 1 year?
Yeah, I think 1 year. I think within 12 months.
Let's open a foreign market.
Yeah, within 12 months, we're going to be using. There will be, I wouldn't say mainstream adoption, because I think just the overall sort of, like, token cost of running the agents is going to be too high. It's going to be still paywalled behind, $200 a month subscription. So I don't think it's going to be kind of as big. But I do think they're going to be adopted in at least one definition of mainstream. You know, maybe it's corporates, maybe it's, I don't know, entrepreneurs, rich people, but they're going to be a thing.
Yeah, let's hope for that. If that happens,
I mean, like,
let's open a. I think it's a very good.
it's amazing. Like
thing
Web3
to-
folks has a casino for everything. Like, let's poly market this. Let's. But we have Matilda as well. I think Matilda has celebrated Bitcoin's TPS by joining in late. So, but thank you so much for joining, Matilda from Gaib. And I'll put you in the context of conversation which we are having right now. That is ETH gonna go up? That I'm kidding. Okay, so that's not the conversation. It was around autonomous agents, and it was around like how, because we are all of us in the room, we sell shovels, like from compute to data to all of these folks who are building. Our job is to sell shovels, and the focus has been around that. And the whole idea of autonomous agents, is it really viable and possible, like in terms of even financial instruments or anything like that? So Indra, Matilda, Prashant, and Mark would love to have your point on this, and love the candid conversation till yet. So yeah, over to you guys.
Go for it.
Wow. Wow. Is that such a tough question that she left?
No. The throughput was.
You left.
Internet bandwidth was.
Sorry,
was
I think
We
internet
didn't even ask for revenue.
Yeah, sorry. I think my internet is a bit choppy. Yeah. So I guess currently we're talking about whether autonomous agents are even viable, or are we talking about some other shovels in the AI supply chain?
Yeah, the autonomous agents specifically.
Yeah. Well, I think we're definitely approaching there, right?
We're approaching AGI, and we cannot
Yeah.
be.
Did I just keep on dropping? I'm sorry. Let me change my VPN. One sec.
But yeah, I think Suraj in the chat, he's asking, are we saying AGI in 1 year or agents in 1 year? And I'm saying agents. AGI, I think, is in the 5-year frame.
Okay, then we are in the same boat.
Yeah. Agents will be more, easier to adopt, right?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but still, I'm still kind of struggling to understand, like, honestly, like, to all of you, like, I'm still not yet convinced that the fully autonomy should be given to these agents. See, because nobody has produced any kind of, like, Google yesterday has told us, like, now their Gemini is more secure than previous one. We don't know what was the previous one vulnerability, right? We don't know what is the current vulnerabilities. So there has to be a definition of the security loopholes before even we kind of hand over, because the leak of these agents will be massive. Just imagine they have the entire database access of the Google, and then somehow somebody just exploited it, and then suddenly all of the email addresses are out in the market, or some private information which you have shared over email is also all in the market. I mean, it has to be very open and transparent, honestly, and that's where I'm kind of like more into that. Like, how are we going to ensure that these data security loopholes are not just being said that we are better than previous? So we have to define what was bad in the previous. Like, did we lost any access to those data which we have, like, put into those models, or like what exactly those things are? And it is a very black box which these companies are creating. I don't know what is. So that's the reason I'm kind of like still not convinced that where we should give a financial assets on my own personal information, everything on my data on my phone or my Windows machine or Mac machines to these agents.
Is it too late? Is it too late? Because Google already has all your data. The question is the agent going to leak it? Right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because they already have one part of it. At least we are like, okay, fine, they are not going to share that. We have signed the agreement with them, terms and conditions. They can use it on their own terms. But at least it should not be just publicly available. because these LLMs can do that, right? Anyone can go into those things and they can basically do it. So yeah, so that's where I am kind of like still not yet convinced, where I just give my financial instrument. And by the way, I have not shared any financial instrument to Google yet in any forms. So, so that's
It should
But
be this.
in any ways you guys think, right, because it's eventually a good thing for everyone, like because everybody, this whole agent wave has come up from compute end and from even from storage and data end, that there is a higher chance of people utilizing these GPUs which we are currently inducing through decentralized networks and stuff like that. Like that something eventually adds on top of it. Like the whole wave came in, yes, there was a deep in wave which was running like back in 2020, I think initially 2024, but then we kind of jumped in on this DAI to agents narrative, and there are few players who have played a very important role in this. But as people representing companies who are selling compute and working on data, what do you guys think? That is this a good indicator for a business?
So I think yeah, because on our side, I mean, on our side, Poly AI provide the data set for the companies to integrate with, and these days there are a lot of AI agents project that's starting to adopt this, and there are demand on this data set, which is, I mean, it's already annotated by the users, and they just integrate by request.
Like, I mean, in terms of data, yes, a lot of data is being capitalized, but there is a lot of unstructured data that is out there as well. But I think I'll come to specifically uh, Pundi's part, AI's part in this. But from compute players, like, what do you think? Like, has business been good with this narrative? Like, are people going ahead and deploying more machines every day, or this is something which is like we are still fighting the same fight with AWS GCP because that's like number one priority for people, and how are things from that perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in. So I think it's been a really good thing, right? Because this is an indication of more people building in the B2C avenue of AI, right? The application space. Before, the application space was the pure LLM space, right? The infrastructure space. Building frontier models is arguably one of the most expensive things that you can do, right? That's why we're seeing the biggest venture capital rounds in history being used to fund the growth of these companies. And there's only a very small number of teams and companies that qualify to even play in that sandbox, right? You need to be a highly technical, highly capable, extremely well-funded and connected team to even bother attempting to build something that competes with frontier models, right? But what we've seen recently is these kind of models reaching a point, and the open source models reaching a point where teams can come and build products on top of that, right? Most obvious examples are kind of wrappers, but people are actually fine-tuning and building interesting kind of unique products on top of, those LLMs as well. And the type of team that has the ability to do that is very different from the type of team that is actually building the frontier models themselves, right? You've got exponentially more teams able to build the applications that are being built on top of these LLMs. So the way that I kind of look at it is this shift in compute demand towards inferencing, right? I'm not going to say that that training is dropping, right, in any way. I don't think that's true. But I will say that the teams that are looking for inference and compute to provide that inference is rapidly scaling up, because as we know, it's pretty easy to build prototypes now. It's never been easier to build a prototype, to spin something up really, really quickly, right? To attempt product market fit. And inference scales obviously with usage, right? So if you kind of hit product market fit overnight with an AI application, it might be a calendar app or a fitness app, right? You can go from 10 users to 100,000 users over the course of 3 days, right? And that is an exponential compute requirement that you now need to satisfy. So I think certainly from a decentralized compute or a compute network perspective in general, this is really exciting because you don't necessarily know how to pick the winners, right? Because the winners aren't obvious, right? Frontier models, you kind of know who's building the frontier models, who has the caliber and the capability. But with applications, it could just as likely be, a kind of like two-person development team in India as it could be a 10-person development team in San Francisco. But it's interesting. The shift is definitely towards the application space, which means a lot more builders, a lot more teams, and a lot more opportunity to catch their attention as a compute provider.
Yeah, I mean, this is eventually the right time, like for compute to specifically be in. Like, we personally, like you guys are, I think, heavily investing in these uh, terms as well. Like, we saw the whole amplitude of Aether specifically in this, and which is pretty commendable, guys. And Matilda, what's your take on this? Like, from Guy's POV, like, you have seen a lot of people utilizing compute, and Prashant, I want to chime you in this as well. Like, do you think, or do you rely on this narrative as market being good, as business being good?
I think it's very
Yeah.
Mathilda, you can go.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I absolutely agree with what Mark just said. There's a smiling curve of value that's being captured in the AI supply chain. We'll actually have that smiling curve on our docs as well, Gaib's official docs. So the vast majority of value is being captured by two ends of the supply chain. One is compute, the other is applications, whereas a lot of the middlewares and toolings in between actually tend to capture a bit less value. So I think there has definitely been a comeback of quote unquote GPT wrapper when GPT first came out, and there were just so many companies that are being considered GPT wrapper, which was kind of like a troll because like they were like definitely like people thought that there weren't so many innovations around it, whereas these days there's actually a lot of innovation around these so-called GPT wrapper because you can actually like re-architecting a lot of the foundational models to build applications that are catering to specific industries or domains or enterprises or corporations that actually has a domain specific knowledge, or the enterprise or like corporate specific knowledge or database or even culture built in it. So I think there's a lot of innovation in that front, just like applications that are industry specific, that are domain specific, that are corporate specific. And all of that is going to require a lot of compute as well. And it's that the demand is definitely not just in the big players like your AWS or GCP or Azure. And we work with a lot of, I guess, like quote unquote mid-tier cloud companies and data centers out there that have roughly a few $100 million to a few $1 billion of fixed assets on their balance sheet, primarily GPUs. So these ones are probably considered mid-tier in the traditional world, but they're massive, obviously, in crypto once we tokenize their GPU clusters. Once we bring the cash flow of these GPU clusters on chain so that people can essentially invest in them and profit from them and get a dividend of the AI growth. So because we work closely with these cloud companies and data centers by helping them with financing through tokenization, so we can see the actual demand. A lot of them have like a long queue of clients just waiting for their compute. And they have the contracts line, they have the service contracts lined up. they have client demand, and they just need more capital to basically expand their operations, buy more chips, essentially, build more data centers. So this is also why, I guess, in the GPU financing world, we're seeing more and more creativity or innovations in terms of formats of financing as well. For example, I think Stargate, the $500 billion investment fund specifically for AI infra investments, that's being set up by the US government and OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank. They are in the middle of structuring a financing deal to finance the data center with its revenue streams as the collateral. So this is a lot more common in traditional industries like oil and gas, but actually pretty new in the cloud and data center space. But it started to emerge right now as well. So you could see that like we as an industry, or like financial institutions are getting more and more creative around how to structure these GPU financing deals to really meet the demand for faster, more effective,
But
more
are we
efficient
catering
financing.
to that kind of demand? Do you think, like, are we even comparable to different hyperscalers out there? Like, we understand that's a good part, like in terms of, but you see that different hyperscalers have H100, H200s requirements through the charts, and they are catering to that demand. So, do you think
Prakash,
we close? I
sorry for
completely get
interrupting.
it.
I
Yeah,
got to
Mark,
shoot. Thank you
thank
guys
you
for having me. It's been a pleasure.
for being here. Yeah,
Talk
but
again soon.
for
Let's do another
sure.
one. Bye, guys.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So do you think, like, are we able to cater to that demand specifically? Like which actual Web 2 companies which are complying to, like, let's say the whole narrative wave is being ridden on hyperscalers and being ridden on actual like data ingestion platforms. So like, are we close to that or are we far off?
Well, I'm not an expert on that, to be frank, but I think there is demand. There's an interesting. I mean, I'm Chinese, so I know like AI companies in China, for example, they actually want this kind of like regulatory arbitrage to be able to tap onto your H100, H200 machines. Well, a lot of times H100 is sufficient for a lot of these like use cases through decentralized compute, and so there's definitely demand over there. And also, I think as the overall demand is shifting away from very heavy load training to more and more inferencing, I think a lot of the decentralized platforms can actually meet the demands as well. We also work with compute providers that are on decentralized GPU marketplaces or decentralized compute platforms like Aether, for example. So we also work with them on financing their GPUs as well. So we've seen firsthand as well, there's also a lot of demand for their own GPU. So I think like it's always good as an industry to have optionality for builders, especially given that a lot of the startups these days are more gravitating towards building applications rather than big foundational models. Foundational models are definitely getting more and more, I guess, commoditized and
Oh, we lost her again.
popular. A lot of enterprises switched to DeepSeek very quickly. Like they reacted so fast to that. So like that's definitely a proof that like it's getting a bit more and more commoditized, just foundational models themselves, and just a lot of the activity is happening on the application front, which a lot of demand can be met by these decentralized compute platforms.
Yeah, and I would love to kind of add on few things also, Mathilda, on your point as well. Is like if you look at any kind of a demand chart, right, or if you look at any kind of any economic cycle or any way you just drive the demand. So it's a pyramid shape, right, where you have the bottom line where you get where it's a customer segmentation. Okay, so on the bottom line you always have the people like who pay quite less and they are not eager to pay and go on a heavy costing side, they always remain on the bottom side. Where I'm looking at, I'm ready to compromise on certain things, but I'm not. I just want these GPUs because I just want to test it out the systems, or I want these things to kind of do it. So that's always the bottom layer again. And then we have the mid tier segment where we have startups, SMEs who have raised around, let's say, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $10 million, even it goes to around $50 million, right? So they fall into those segments. And then we have the other segment, which is where people like hyperscaler and everyone come into the picture. The way I look at this entire market is that every segment of this entire tiering has multi-billion-dollar opportunities, and every segment will create multiplayer in all of these verticals. And it's not happened in Web 2. It already happened in Web 2. If you look at like if you look at web hosting services, very classic, right? It's not it's a everyone just thought like, okay, so web hosting services will be dominated heavily by hyperscalers, right? Then suddenly what happened is we had companies like who started working on providing the hosting services upfront, right? So that's the other challenge. Like that's the thing which will evolve, because not everyone is willing to go ahead what hyperscaler is asking out in the market. Most other people will be also looking to have additional options which can lower down their cost of acquisition. And the second thing, as what Matilda has also rightly pointed, there is something called regulatory arbitrage, right? What does that mean? That basically means like a lot of things which is not available in my geolocation or my systems, I can go to decentralized systems and I can access those machines without any restrictions, right? Again, there are legal compliances and complications around it, but I still feel that if it is sufficiently decentralized, then nobody can even stop it from being accessed, right? So that's where we see is like there's a multi-billion-dollar opportunity which is lying around. And as a decentralized company, as a decentralized startup, as a decentralized community, I do not ever want to compete with any hyperscalers, because we are not what they are. If we become them, then we are no longer decentralized startups, right? We are no longer decentralized Web3 companies out there in the market, right? We are not decentralized community at all. So we have to understand our moat, the market which we want to tap into. And there is a humongous amount of compute demand which is going to be coming into, and it's already there. Like if you look at the best way to look at this is to see how much data centers are investing in expanding their data center growth, right? And if you see in the past couple of years, the data center have acquired massive amount of GPUs and like CPU capacities in their data centers. They have expanded, like NVIDIA. Just look at NVIDIA graph. No, I think that's a direct indication of like where the compute demand is shooting up, right? So I think that's a direct correlation. And then we are going to see a lot of these. Google also announced that TPUs they are coming with to provide their hyperscaler yesterday, right? So I think there's a huge market where we are going to tap into, and decentralized compute is not going anywhere. It will be serving. It's going to be one of the options for individuals in the world to kind of go and access it free of like openly, transparently, and go and build on top of it in a very open source way. I think it's like the entire open source initiative should be, and that's where I'm kind of like working towards to like how can we make that happen? How can we bring the entire open source initiatives on a decentralized compute, right, versus on centralized one? Because that's where it just matches. It's a match made in heaven concept, right? That is where it kind of like resonates with me.
Yeah, like they're symbiotic. In we AI needs crypto in however sense we personally feel, and I think the whole thesis around it, and it's good. Like I have seen Gaib, Spheron, and mostly like decentralized compute players who are actually building like for scale, doing a lot of taking a lot of steps in that direction, which would eventually be useful for the builders on not on a short term incentive but long term as well. Like even the whole price play is very imminent. Like I would say like not charging users like as however comparable it could be, but even the price play is pretty more convenient for any builder out there
Yeah,
and
and the other thing is
good
like it's also
possibility to
economic distribution, right? So for example, what Gaib team is doing, right? So they are enabling the liquidity for these smaller GPU providers also, right? So now what is going to be happening is like community is investing into these GPU companies like to procure more GPUs and expand, right? It's like providing the liquidity to
Yeah.
them and then ask them to like just go and then also allowing community to participate in their upside. So if you want to compete with a hyperscaler, the only way you can compete it with, because they have tons of free flow cash, right, which comes into, you cannot compete with them. But we can compete
Yeah.
with them in terms of like, if as a community we all come together and put that effort forward, then nobody can, then anyone can compete with anyone. It's that, like, you, when you have billions of minds coming together and then sponsoring and like investing into the growth of community led initiatives, that's where the win is. That's what decentralized computing stands for.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think a lot of people who don't actually work in this industry tend to kind of underestimate how nuanced the entire like compute spectrum is. Like, how many differentiated offerings there are, because your AWS, your GCP.
Yeah. It's amazing that we are speaking of AGI this stream.
Hello? Oh,
Yeah, you're back
Yeah.
again. Okay.
I have no idea why my internet is dropping. Okay, I was just saying that I think like most people actually aren't aware of like how many different offerings there are on the entire spectrum, and how of compute, and how nuanced it can be. So your AWS, your GCP, your Azure, they have such a big margin. If I remember correctly, it's like 50 to 70% margin. They have a lot of value add services on top, your data storage, your migration, your data analytics, your ML, all of that. But then if you move down, like move to another end of the spectrum, there are a lot of bare metal machines, data centers out there. And with barely like not so much, value add services on top, you need to configure a lot of the stuff by yourself if you want to use it, but it's so much cheaper. And there's like offerings in between as well. And then there are data centers or cloud companies that are very much like focused on building infrastructure specifically for AI workloads, or like high performance computing workloads. Then your AWS or GCP, they're a bit more general. So and also I don't think a lot of people realize, because the big players, they're just so dominant in terms of like branding and mind share, then you tend to actually forget that like the actual builders in the AI space, they don't make their choices just based on branding and mind share. A lot of them can be quite cost sensitive, and a lot of them, not all of these like AI companies, they have like stacks of VC cash. Some are in bootstrapping phase. There are also like research institutions out there, university research.
Oh my god. Whenever she's speaking
But
something very best,
I have to
really
like give
important.
Matilda for the persistence of being here.
Yeah, yeah. She's
Indra
like,
kind of
no,
gave up.
I'm.
Like he gave up. Like he said no.
Yeah,
Kudos to you,
Oh,
Matilda, for
yeah.
doing this. Like this is not Indra gave up, honestly. I think he's from Hong Kong as well, and he had a lot of issues and he's like, nah, I'm not doing this.
yeah. Yeah. Well, see, this is why we need democratization of the entire
Yes.
internet, so there's no more censorship. And yeah, so I was basically trying to say that like first, costs do really matter a lot for actual builders in AI space. Second, there's just like a lot more considerations besides like the branding, the big names, all of that. And there's like like exactly like you said, there's like geographical arbitrage components.
Yeah, it looks
It's
like.
always to have optionality. It's always good to have like differentiated offerings on the spectrum, especially at the lower end of the cost spectrum, so that we could, as an industry, boost more innovation and really like lower the barrier for, because like it shouldn't, like if you have such a great product idea, like I think productization in this AI era, the capabilities of productization is the most important thing. If you have such a great product idea and that can create value for our society. And then your bottleneck is that you can't pay your compute costs. That's just so sad. So and the compute costs can really be very high if all the options you have are only the hyperscalers. So I think it's just there is a demand for compute that are more reasonably priced, and it's always good to have optionality on the spectrum as an industry as well.
100%.
Pretty good. Yeah, I think
And
that's
John.
the whole POV of this. I think we have to this is going to be the last segment of this stream because we have a this was a very interesting stream, honestly. Like a lot of people going in, coming out, and joining and rejoining. And but we have to give it for Matilda for her persistence of actually being able to answer all the questions promptly. So kudos to that, Matilda, honestly. And yeah, I would specifically give you the stage, Matilda, for telling what you guys are doing at Gaib and something you want to share off. Go ahead and do that. And Prashant, you post that. Oh.
Oh, so let's wait for her to come back.
Here I come. I mean,
Yeah.
You can go ahead.
New.
Yeah, so I think this definitely sends a positive signal to the community, to the market, that we are a very persistent team, regardless of what happened, externally. Yeah, and thank you so much for having me and giving the stage over here. So we're building the first yield-bearing synthetic dollar called AID, which is backed by AI compute assets. We structure GPU financing deals with cloud companies and data centers around the world via equity or debt agreements, and we package those deals into the backing of AID. And to just really get rid of all of the financial jargons, you can simply think of AID as kind of a share of a GPU fund, where if you buy and stake AID, you're essentially tapping into the cash flow of enterprise-grade GPUs in the real world and earn yield from it without having to buy NVIDIA stocks. So it's really a way to give everyone direct exposure to AI compute without having to buy overpriced semiconductor stocks, and really getting a fair share of the dividends of the AI era. And we'll integrate it with all of the other DeFi protocols as well, so that people can create their own strategies that cater to their own risk and reward profiles. And what we do is really just to try to issue a yield-bearing asset that is safe, stable, generates resilient yield, and is also cycle resistant as well, because the yield comes from real-world AI space. Yeah, so that's what we're building. And we launched AID Alpha, which functions as an early deposit program for AID itself. Last week, we opened the first cap of $5 million, which was filled within an hour, and another cap of another 10 mil, which was filled within 2 hours 2 days ago. So more caps coming to basically reward the early participants of AID.
Oh, we lost her in the interesting part.
She already told the interesting part.
Yeah. So I think that's probably all of the interesting parts. Yeah. And I think we'll definitely look forward to working with Sphron as well, to see if we could basically financialize the cash flow of these GPUs, so we really kick off an economic flywheel and lower the barrier for everyone, every party in this space. Yeah.
Amazing. And we are also
Amazing,
looking forward to
Matilda.
that. So I think this space is becoming more of a BD space for us. Like lot of times, like we come here and then we ask and then we get in return. And I think we all should do it, because it's a great space. So
Extreme BD.
but the best part is that, like, what you guys are building, like I'm truly admire that. I know Kony like for quite a long time now, and the work the entire team is kind of putting it is kind of great and amazing. Kudos to entire Guide team. And looking forward to work with you guys and to enable like more liquidity for our GPU providers into the network to ensure that they are also able to refinance or finance their systems, and community can also participate in their upside. Coming back to Spheron, our core thesis and philosophy at Spheron is to build the world's largest community power data center. And what does that mean? That basically means that if you have a device at home, if your device which is not being used, or it is in enterprise or data center or wherever it is, we don't care, but it has to be device. It has to have certain specs which we have laid out. If those specs are met, you can connect your device to Spheron. Now, the best part is that since we are decentralized network, anyone on the other side can access these devices. And the beauty of all of these things is that nobody will ask you any questions in between. So you can go connect your device on the one side, on the other side, you can sell it to anyone else. We don't care. That's how it basically works, like in a very nutshell. Now, coming back, there are a lot of systems. It's very easy to say that this is what we have built, but in a decentralized system, it's very tough to build because it's a lot of people will spam the systems, fake the GPUs, tons of different things which happens. And to do that, we have built the robust slashing mechanism. We have tiering systems. We have Slack nodes. We have Fez nodes. We have built everything from bottom up so that none other team should build it again in the future. They can just directly use Spheron for building their own marketplaces. So the core beauty of this Spheron is like you don't need new marketplaces to be built again. You can just use Spheron as it is, and we will not ask you any question to do to do a Spheron. You can go ahead and use Spheron and promote decentralized and open source going forward. So that's what we are doing at Spheron. And looking forward for anyone who is hearing it here, if you have a laptop or machines or anything like that which is idle, please go ahead and connect it. As we are working towards to drive more demand on these machines, we will be start seeing like a lot of these open source models are getting deployed, and these machines are going to be used by researchers, developers around the globe. So don't waste your machine just making it idle and sitting it idle at your house.
Pretty amazing. I think every time I hear, like, we do it every day and almost, and every time I hear it, I kind of like what we are solving and catering to different builders out there. So thank you so much, Prashant, and thank you so much, Matilda, for being here. And this has been a good space. People who are watching this, go follow Gaib, go follow Spheron, and thank you so much for watching this. You mean
So
a
that's
lot
the
to us.
best part, Matilda. I just received a guide email because I subscribed with you guys. While we were chatting, I just received a guide email. Good.
It was Matilda
So,
who she sent.
yes,
Like,
it says, like,
he
okay,
was
let me
checking,
just.
like, would you check the phone?
Very flattered. Very flattered.
Yeah.
But thank you so much,
Thank,
guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and looking forward to the next one.
Yeah.
thank you.